So that's good. If you're started, you're ahead, that's good news. Then the second question of the day, who started reading about the beer game?
The what?
The beer game. No. Who even remembers that as a part of the assignment?
I remember. I do.
Okay. All right. So, and actually that's out of the 5th discipline, so it's actually Dr. Sony's book. But I thought if you really want to start thinking...
wrote it.
Huh? You wrote it?
I wrote it. Under a different name.
Yeah. You look like Singay, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
But the discussion was, as you start to think about systems, and that's what you're doing in your morning class, obviously, we're going to be applying those concepts, and hopefully you're starting to see that as you look at Kersner's book, and even in the Bach. You know, everything in the Bach is organized by processes and organized by systems. So PMI talks about inputs, outputs, tools and techniques. They talk about enterprise environmental factors. And so the point of this discussion was to start to think about things in systems. And my comment was, if you look in the 5th discipline, and I think it's about the 4th chapter. Do anybody remember where that was? I think 3rd or 4th chapter at the beginning, there's a description of the beer game. And that's a really nice introduction overview to what are the concepts we're talking about, and you know, then begin to think about how do we apply that to what we're going to do here in project management. The other thing that we talked about last week was the book assignment. I got a lot of feedback on that, so I think the big majority of you have chosen a book. I might have slipped up and let 2 people pick the same book, but if that's the case, then that's on me, and you guys are okay. If you haven't picked a book, give me your feedback and let me know. I think in the email I'd said these were not, nobody had chosen those at this time. Look at what the assignment says. I'm not looking for this to be a big, long dissertation. I'm looking for you to extract from that book. I am actually looking for you to read it, okay? So we'll start with that. If you've already read it in your past, I think it's in your best interest to read something else, because the point of this, again, is to treat this like a profession. I'm looking to be a better professional, therefore I'm going to read several things. There's no way for me to know, but it's in your best interest to read something different, to learn something different. Your objective then is to share with the class. This is the book I read, here's a summary of it, and here's how it applies to one of these concepts up here in the upper left-hand corner. Leadership, planning, scope management, communications, etc., etc., etc. So as you prepare your 1 to 3 pager, my preference being 1. Thank you. All right, short, sweet, to the point. But don't count words, and don't just do 1 page. Do a good job, because I would like to get some of these published. I think we got 4 published a year or so ago in the practitioners periodical for the American Society of Engineering Management as book summaries. So that's what I'm looking for, is a nice book summary that says this is what it's about, here's the way it applies to management, and specifically here's the relationship with the PMBOK or project management. So that's what that assignment's about. I said that originally, I think I said beginning in week 4, if you're ready to do that and present it to the class, we're looking for, you know, a couple or 3 minutes of stand up, tell us what the book's about, tell us how it applies to project management. If you're ready to do that the next time we come back, which will actually be our 3rd meeting, then make it happen and get that behind you. Okay? Here's the book I read over the break. I'm sure over having a week off, your intent is to spend that Friday working on school stuff, right? No, probably not. But okay, if you want to, or if you have that opportunity and you want to get that part of the assignment behind you, do it, and we'll let you talk the next time we get back together. And what we'll do is somebody will say, I'm ready to do my book, and I'll say go, and they'll stand up and say, I read thus and such, here's what it's about. You know, give me a summary, right? 2 minutes, 3 minutes on the top side of what it was about and how it applies to project management concepts. And then, would you recommend it or not? It is not unusual, though it's not the norm, but it happens from time to time where somebody will say, I read this, it was horribly written, the information was fine, but I wouldn't recommend you read it. I'm giving you a summary now. Take it. Don't read it. Or don't waste your time. Most of the time it goes the other way, but you know, just tell me what you thought. Tell me what you gleaned out of that. All right? Any comments? Questions?
Did you say you were going to post the slides?
I am. I did not get on Blackboard this week. That's what I'll do on my holiday.
Okay.
So yes, I'm going to do that. I'll post these, and I'm going to go ahead and post the next couple of weeks out and give you those. I think what I asked for was some flexibility from you guys, that even if I post them as week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, don't hold me to that. We'll cover the information, and we're really going to make sure we cover the PMBOK stuff, and we're using the other book, Kersner, as more of a reference. And if you notice how the readings are in there, they kind of jump all over the place, and that's intended to, whatever topics we're talking about in here, we're going to read some stuff that's in there. And again, back on the Kersner book, there's some really good case study stuff in there. There's some good information that's in there, but I certainly don't expect you to verbatim go through that and, you know, be an expert on Kersner. I expect at the end of this, class, you have some practical tools and practical things that you can apply to your project management world, that you're a better practicing project manager, and that also you have some other concepts that relate to being a professional manager in this space. Seems like there was another question. Oh, yes. The midterm. The way this thing is written right now, it reads as if you're going to come in here, you're going to spend the first hour to hour and a half doing a midterm, and then we'll do we'll have a lecture the rest of that day, or group exercise or whatever. I'd like to change that and make that a take home. I'll get you the test earlier, then you can submit it via email or bring it to me that day, or however you want to do it, unless somebody is just absolutely opposed to that. You know, my objective is to see what you've learned and see how you're doing and see that you are learning. So it's not that I want you to spend time in this room doing anything in particular. Groups, that group assignment, I'm going to show you an outline. You're welcome to use that or something else you prefer if you want to use something work. But for groups, I'd recommend you go ahead and start selecting your team. I'm not going to assign you a team. I'm saying 3 to 4 person teams, and you pull it together and you do the project management assignment, which is, you know, the project plan, the risk, the communication plan, whatever is on that list there. So you guys tell me what your teams are, and then you pick the project that you want to do. Okay? And I think we talked about this. If you can do it for work, and that's appropriate, all the better. Then you can, my understanding is some of you have the flexibility to work on school at work. Good for you. And if you can work on school stuff that helps you at work, all the better. Anything else? All right. This is about where we dropped off today, last time. What I'd like to do is get through the rest of this and make sure we've introduced the things that we're going to be talking about, and at least gone through it 1 or 2 times on some concepts. And then beginning the next week, we'll start diving down deeper into individual elements of the project management body of knowledge and the project management system, talking about individual processes and application. And then talking about some assignments that you guys can do. But today we'll again go over more of the higher level stuff and how the pieces fit together. Just to remind us, we talked last time about starting with objectives and then doing a scope of work, develop a WBS, which means what? Work breakdown structure. From that, we'll develop a schedule and estimate, get approval, and then we'll start. And there were two blanks. Does this almost look like a test question? Almost. Wouldn't it make a great test question? Then what would go in the blank besides scope of work that would be really important to you guys as project managers?
Alignment.
Alignment. So that's the word you want to put in there, and you want to be able to tell me about what that means. And fundamentally, what concept are we talking about? Alignment between who and
You
what?
and the customer. Project manager and the customer.
Project manager and the customer, us and the customer, and why? What we're going to do and not do. Because from there on out, why is alignment important at that point?
Affects everything else.
It affects everything else. All the work I'm going to do, how much time I'm going to spend, all the money I'm going to spend depend on whatever we agree to right there. And that's why, and you said it, what's in and what's not in. That's going to be important, because I'm going to say to you, I'm not going to do this and this and this and this. Why is that important? Budget. Schedule. Now, what if you as the customer say, wait, I want that. Is that a good or a bad thing?
Good.
Yeah, could be a very good thing. Yeah, more work, more money, right? All right, and then down here at Go, change management. And somebody can explain that concept to me, right? Or why I say that at Go.
There's always going to be something that you didn't account for in your scope.
Which is going to do what?
Change the every other piece of the process. Or
Every
change.
other piece. That's the critical thing. There's going to be something I didn't think about, or something that's different, or something that gets added, or something gets deleted. And at that point, that's going to affect the scope of work. The so what or and addition to, because that gets you about 80% there, right? In terms of understanding. But the rest of the understanding is what you said. When I change that, that impacts everything else. If I begin to understand that as a project manager, that if I change one thing, it affects everything else, that becomes really powerful, because that's not the world we live in. The world we live in is, and you guys described this to me at the end of class last time, somebody says, I need you to do this, and I've got this much money. And you say, what do we say in the world we live in today?
Okay.
Okay. Right? Or no, what really happens is who says okay? My boss. Right? My boss says, okay, yeah, she can do that. Now, do we have alignment? We don't have alignment. And so we're set up to fail beginning. Now, we're going to talk about some other things that happen that are built into the system that cause us problems too. By the way, projects are managed, the way projects are planned, and you guys, hopefully some of you are going to have this light bulb of your experience, because you're going to go, holy cow, that's what's been going on. I see now why we're always set up to fail schedule-wise. Can anybody predict what we're going to talk about? Because right, this is one time. You're going to hear this a few more times. Why are we set up to fail schedule-wise? In the project management world, I can tell you right now, the system is set up so that you're going to fail. Why?
You don't account for variation.
That's the right answer. Pull that string a little bit and tell me what you're thinking. Which of you said that? You're both like this, and I heard it.
So if you don't account for variation, I mean, there'd be weather delays or supply delays or, you know, an increase in cost in a material.
Okay, and that's what's going on in the background. Why would I say then that always causes me to fail? So it's about variation. There's always variation in the duration of tasks between what we said it's going to be and what it actually is, right? Always. We know that. What was your follow-on thought?
Because you're dealing with people.
You guys can't do that to me, right? Yeah, because you're dealing with people. And it's even more fundamental than that. We live in a world where all systems have natural variation, right? even your time driving to work. There's some natural variation. So we understand there's a distribution around what's going to happen. So think about this then. Here's the follow-on so what there. If you plan a task to go from A to B, if you finish early, does that help you in the project management world?
No, it can't.
It might.
It might. Does it 99% of the time?
No.
Why not? When did I plan to start the next task? When that one was done. So if I plan for this task to go from here to here, and then I plan for that task to go from there to there, if this task finishes early, when does this one start?
Same schedule.
When it was scheduled to start, right?
Unless you have them tied together, which you might.
You might. Now, that would be unusual, but you might. Right? There's some people that are starting to understand some issues. And I want to have that discussion when we get here. However, if you're late, does it affect this one?
Yeah, it pushes it out.
How many times?
Always.
Always. So every time you're late, you lose. And every time you're early,
You don't gain.
you don't gain anything. This is the system we're living in. It's set up to make sure that you're always late. Right?
So if you try to pad the schedule, but then you get penalized for that.
So just keep pulling that string, right? That's the world we live in. But if I start with, this is my system and I'm set up to fail, then I can start having those conversations. What am I going to do different? Why am I always late? You know what PMI says? It's like, oh, I should know this number and I'll look it up. It's like 80 to 90% of projects are late. It's a huge number. You have another thought?
Well, I was just gonna say, with that, you were saying that, you know, if you finish early, you don't gain, or if you finish late, then it pushes everything else back. Isn't that only if it's tied to critical path?
Okay, that's a great point. Yes, it is. If these tasks are on critical path. And again, we're going to have this conversation when we talk about scheduling in more depth. Your issues and your issues. We're going to start talking about those things. So what will happen is, if we do this on things that aren't critical path, what happens to them? They end up on the critical path, right? So they get pushed out to where, hey, that wasn't even on the critical path last week, and now it is. What happened? You screwed up. So we blame the people. And it's the system that's working. It's the system we live in. If we understand that it's a system problem, not a people problem, would we deal with that differently? Sure we would. I'm not going around looking for somebody to blame now. I'm trying to fix the system by saying, okay, are there ways we can tie this together? Are there ways we can plan in case we're able to start early, or et cetera? But see the different discussion you're having now? So many times the system we live in says, if I can just find the right person to blame, I can declare victory. Right? But does that help us do better projects? Make more projects on time? Make more projects within schedule? No. But again, that's the world we're living in right now. And for me as a manager or a project manager, if I just see that this is a systems problem, then I have a different discussion about how to deal with that system. Right? So, would that make a great question? Can you connect scheduling to systems thinking? Right? That might even be. And I'll tell you this, most of your midterm and final is going to be multiple choice, but there will be a couple of questions that I'll ask you to give me a little bit more thinking on. Okay, so what are we going to cover? We're going to cover the system. We're going to talk about defining a project. We're going to start on that in a minute. So what we're going to do in the next hour and 15 minutes or so, well, plus your lunchtime, is go through these concepts at kind of a high level. Talk about the process, talk about execution and some of the supporting processes we're going to talk about, like communications and human resources. And I think I mentioned that last week, right, about how my belief is project management's a great training ground. You get exposed to a lot of really good stuff. We'll talk about contingency planning and kind of point toward that, risk management and the relationship between risk management and contingency planning, change management. When we say all projects have change, then we as project managers ought to begin to think about, then how am I going to deal with those changes? What does that mean to manage change? We'll talk about that. And then the graded approach to project management. I'll tell you now, I really like that concept. And if I like that concept, it's likely to show up on something that you're going to get to tell me about, right? So I have a few of my favorite kind of concepts, and you'll kind of begin to understand that as we talk. And so begin to think about that. And then I want to talk to you about the project manager. What are the roles? What are some training tools? What are some resources that can help you make you a better project manager? All right, what's a project? If I just throw it out there and ask you, what's a project? In the PMBOK, did you see a definition of a project in your reading?
Beginning and ending.
Yeah, now you're going into how it's defined conceptually, but there is a very specific page I wanted to point you to.
Outside of operations?
Outside of operations, yes, and that is a critical concept there, that we define projects basically two ways. We define them by definition, and there's a PMBOK definition, and then I'll give you a definition that includes what was said over here, beginning and end, temporary endeavor, yada, yada, yada. Define it that way. And then we will define projects as compared to operational activities. So we'll say there's certain things we do that are operational, certain things we do that are projects, and they live in the same organizations. So how can I recognize if I'm working in a project space or an operational space? Doggone it. Okay, here we go. On page 3, if you take the PMP exam, this question will be on way over half of you. What's the definition of a project? And it says a project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. That's the PMBOK definition. Now, what we do is we start defining it based on that definition, saying if we compare it to operations, a project is fixed in time. It has a beginning and end, which is what somebody said. Whereas an operational activity is more ongoing. Project is work scope focused versus people focused. In operations, I'm more making sure I have the right skills and ability and they're doing the things they do to keep things going, right? Unique versus repetitive. A project is a one-time unique event. So invariably, I'll say, is building a house, a project, or an operational activity?
Your house, or your contractor?
Okay. No, building any house. It's a project, conceptually, most of the time, right? Now, and then somebody will say, yeah, but houses get built all the time, right? So that's back to your are you the contractor question, right? So there are processes we use that might look more like operational activities, digging foundation or putting up the walls or whatever. But for that house, that's a unique experience, right? And I don't want to confuse this or make it more complicated than it really is. I just want us to recognize that we need to be able to differentiate, am I working on a project or am I doing an operational activity? Why is that important to you as project managers or organizational managers?
Because you don't use a lot of these tools in operations.
Yeah, you'll use some of them, but you don't use all of them. But let's go to the core, more strategically. Why do I want my people to understand if I've got them working on a project versus working on an operational activity? Say that again, who said that? Okay, it is about managing resources. It's even more fundamental than that.
Most projects support some higher level effort, you know, at a program level.
And that is also in the PMBOK. That concept is something you'll want to understand about how projects fit into the strategy of an organization and fit into portfolios. So yes, that's important. Here's fundamentally what I'm thinking about, and the concept I want us to grasp today is, have you ever been on that project that never ended? It just went and went and went and went. And finally, at some point, somebody's saying, what is it we were trying to accomplish here? What was our objective? You know what? We don't even need to do that anymore. It doesn't fit with our strategic objectives. You know, we have a really, really good team here doing really, really interesting stuff every day, but there's no end in sight. A project ends. Now, where would I be most likely to implement continuous improvement concepts? Projects or operations?
Operations.
Operations. Not exclusively, but most likely, because I've defined a process for doing the things I want to do, and I'm going to turn the crank. Keep it going, keep it going. Oh, I want a better way to do that. Could I do it quicker? Could I do it better? Could I do it less expensively? Right? So that concept would apply more often to operational activities. So we'll talk about, you guys said this, tools are applicable in either situation, but the application may be different, may look different. The objective, we talked about, defines value. What's the sponsor paying us to do? That's this concept here. Why would I say I want an objective and a scope of work? Why wouldn't that be the same thing?
Because you could have an objective, but your scope to get there could be endless unless you define it.
Yes. So the way we say that, what he said is correct, but the way we say that is, this is kind of like the goal line, the end point. I want a way to succinctly define this project and differentiate it from a lot of other projects. So the objective gives me a way, some organizations need to give it a number. So I know which project am I talking about. I don't have to go into all the detail about this project and this is in, this is out. If I want to talk to you about the project, I can, in a short, sweet way, communicate which one am I talking about and what's the end. When will I know that I'm done? So, and then it gives me a way to say, what are they paying us to do, so I can say we're done when we're done. All right? All right, scope, schedule, and budget. You guys have heard that over and over and over, I'm sure. Some of you've probably even seen people do this and say, you know, this is the triangle that we talk about in project management. And some of you probably even heard scope, schedule, budget, pick two, and we'll come back to that. So, customer focus is about accomplishing the scope, getting the job done. And then I think we talked about this last time. In the PMBOK, they speak to define, plan, execute, monitor, and close as the steps in the different pieces and processes of the project management we'll talk about. And right now that's probably not clear what I mean by that or why I would say that at this point, but we'll go over that several different times as we go through the different elements of project management. But you're going to want to keep that in mind. We're going to define something, plan it, execute it, monitor, and then close out. So I told you we're going to discuss the PM process and processes. So when I talk about the project management process, I'm basically talking about this. But then I'm going to say that this is made up of various processes. So we have a process for planning scope. We have a process for planning human resources. We have a process for closing procurement. Right? So we're going to say, well, how many processes are there? I should look this up too. I think this, do you remember this? Does somebody remember what page this is on? Where it shows all the knowledge areas and all the processes? I should have. should have marked this. What do I think it's table?
Page 61.
Is it table 3.2?
Oh, 3-1 project.
3.1, 3.1, yes. On page 61, thank you, there's table 3.1. So if you notice, it says project management process groups at the top. So you have an initiating process group. And then down the left-hand side, you have knowledge areas. So the way PMI organized the project management body of knowledge is this table 3-1. That's something you're going to want to use as a guide, and if you plan to take the test, this will become the basis for your studying. All of these things that are in the middle of this table are processes. So you have process groups going vertically. You have a planning process group. So all the processes under that process group are planning processes. So every process will have inputs and outputs. All right, and they'll this is one time, right? You're going to see this plenty of times. But every process will have inputs, outputs, and then in here you'll have tools and techniques. So for a planning process, you're going to have a set of documents and a set of capabilities and all kinds of things, people and tools and papers that are going to be inputs into this planning process. Then you're going to do something with that using these tools and techniques to create an output. So every one of these processes will have tools, techniques, inputs, and outputs. And to pass the PMP exam, you're going to be expected to know every one of these processes, what are their tools and techniques, what are their inputs and outputs. And then how do they work together to create an effective plan that gets executed, monitored while it's running, and we'll actually end up calling that, what would you expect that to say? Monitor and control. So this will actually say monitor and control, and then you'll close it. Is it making sense to you? Again, right now we're just talking about the lay of the land. What is all the stuff out there that we're going to be talking about this semester, and then how are they going to fit together? If you've started reading this, you've noticed that the first couple of chapters, maybe even the first 3 chapters, are just about the way it works together and the integration and the pieces and the parts. And then we'll start digging down into the details. Okay? All right. We've talked about what's a project. Here's a definition of a project. Single objectives, finite lifespan, organized team effort, recognized project manager, imposes a set of requirements on the organization and authorized by top management. That's a definition of a project. We're going to look at this as a single entity, and we're going to talk about it as a single entity. Now, the definition I gave you before is the PMI definition. Here's another way to define it as a project. So, which of these are projects? Replace a piece of equipment. Project or operations? Project. What about running that piece of equipment on a daily basis and making candy bars? Operational activity. Implement a new process. Okay, we're going to call it a project, right? Because I'm going to say I want an end. I want it implemented and turned over to operations. Okay? Monthly invoicing clients.
Operations.
All right? So now, you guys, you get this. The point of that is to be able to recognize it. And why do we want to recognize it? Because I may use different tools and techniques when I'm doing those kind of activities. And if it's a project, what's my interest in a project? Ending it, getting it done. If I've got a project to do, my objective is to meet the objective and move on to the next project. It's not to drag it out to spend the budget. That may be shocking to some of the people you work with. None of you, I'm certain. But some of the people you work with may think the objective of the project is to spend the money. That's not the way it works. Okay? Would that not be a different world if we took that as an attitude? The objective is to get it done. All right. All right, I think that's good. All right. Here we go. Project or operations?
Well, we asking for you.
To build them or just as they are right now?
Tell me what you're thinking.
They were a project until they're done.
Project to build it, but now it's an
Now they
operation
operate.
to maintain the pizza from not needing any.
Okay, I agree with you. Anybody else have a perspective?
I mean, I would say, you know, operation to main, or control the tourist functions, and then we go up and visit.
Okay. So in this one right here, or that one right there, there are ongoing operational activities to manage the tourists and take their money and right, all of that. And then somebody said to build them was obviously an operational activity. Is lunch here?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. You guys want to get your lunch and then we'll come back? Somebody's going to have to calm me down. Okay. So, I apologize. Get your lunch and take 5 and we'll go again.
Who's that? Why do you keep calling Ken back over here? You need it or not?
It feels better now. There's a rest of it at my house. Bobby has one, and then I find out we got one heater and a fan. Have to know who? How can I know these
Yes. Yeah, see, I didn't know if that was a 2 or an H, and I tried them both, and it didn't go through. Give me another between the 2. Or you figure that one out. I'll use whatever one you give me. So you work with Reynolds, is that right? Jim Reynolds? Yeah. I saw him early this morning. He's doing some things for our guys in the carbon fiber space.
You see, I was poor.
Somehow, some kind of statistic, was talking about, mentioned that you guys were having a statistic discussion, and I said, Joe McKay. I think he's in the project management class.
Yeah.
And like Jeremy, like, that's exactly what you said you do.
Okay. Yeah, it was one of those things that it was almost in passing.
Okay, so
That is the new business.
Okay.
He doesn't obviously fine.
I don't think that's
Okay. All
They
right.
don't
just
tell
told me.
us.
Oh, that's probably.
That's why.
Economics.
Keep my wine glass full, please.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah, what you really want to hear is, once the problem's understood, is this is what's going to take.
You bring that on to our.
You don't have to, they give it to you. Yeah, you're like business
Do
class.
anything.
If you.
So that's why he's like, can you call me? And I was like, class, before your break. He's like, no, it's not.
I think,
Okay. Okay. All right. Very good.
Jerry's done a good agreement to together. It's just not like a recommendation.
Oh, really?
However, I really do feel like he's kind of like by himself. so.
Yeah.
I don't think.
I know a lot of people who've been volunteering there.
Like this one? Yeah, I mean, this is
They do like engineers or but a lot of other, especially craft, they run off with somebody's
Somebody that has somebody.
Yeah.
I was joking and said, yeah.
Okay, sure.
Oh, you playing the head today? Playing the head. Oh, we didn't get pizza, that's awesome. I think the pizza days are my worst favorite meal.
I hate it because it takes the message away.
I don't know anything about it, I just...
I'm picking one that's on Audible, whichever one I can find. I listen to books every day on the way to and from work, so.
My kids would yell at me and say, turn that off.
What is this crap?
That's what I would have said when I was a kid. I try to listen to music and my 3-year-old freaks out. So what? No, I think you gotta use your fingers.
Oh, you remember when we both started that, right? Oh, yeah, here's a new one. It's not like the old one. Well, that's because the new one sucks. It doesn't work. It's too simple.
My anxiety this semester seems to be a lot less since Garcia.
Oh, yeah. Somebody responded, I got the email subject and it said Garcia video class, or video something, and I was like, oh crap, it brings back some pretty bad memories, man, here. Freaked me out for a second. I think it was Rocky. He was giving him a hard time about it.
Oh.
I saw the subject and it said like reply for like Garcia class videos, and I was like, oh crap. But yeah, I thought it was going to be Dr. Kress is too busy, and so Garcia has graciously stepped in to take over for teaching. I tell you what, my brother-in-law had him for the summer class in accelerated programming, and I was like, oh my gosh. And it was the, what was it? It was like, oh yeah, it was in industrial economics or the economics of whatever economic class he teaches, industrial engineering economics or something.
You know we have economics in our cohort, right?
Huh? Well, Darcy's retiring at the end of this semester, so.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you know
so,
that?
yeah.
How do you know that?
Because my brother-in-law had
She's
it
gonna
for the
hold you to
summer.
it.
Oh,
My brother-in-law had it for a class this summer, and he told him he was retiring at the end of the year.
So that might go towards cohort. They do them in.
Yeah, it would probably our class. Of course, you can stay here or move back.
Did you figure out
I
what
don't know.
the, or just give me a new email? Okay. All right, good.
I'll make that change.
I wouldn't see any reason why we couldn't.
They are expanding. Yeah. They're not changing their hours though.
For managers. That's the easy stuff.
you know that solid sample, PCBs, that stuff comes
Is there a
back.
book for that?
It's gonna be back, it's gonna be very expensive.
Yes, this is for managers.
I hope it doesn't. I hope that oil was, there's enough new, that's, mixed in there.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Sticker right there that's covered up here, so the way through, you're not selling.
I was like, don't go really
Nobody
deep.
say, well, we've replaced
The
those.
funny thing is, I'm in the middle of
Yeah, but
basically a
there's
project
staying,
right now.
the oil has been going bad a long time.
And I'm seeing more of it, you know, right now being how you try to coordinate oil and then go through the project plan
He admitted in last class that he was his career.
and new changes to it, but
Purpose got things.
our project manager is pretty
So oil isn't sealed in here.
so we assign a project engineer that actual competence to try to, you know,
It
give
looks
them
like
that
it was blown out
knowledge.
about it. Is that something
Doing the
about
project
the
manager,
pressure release or what?
we don't have that day to day in our
So initially,
things they say,
when you
want
start
to do.
pulling back, you've got all this,
Just do this, like, no, it's not like that, we can't do that.
and the flow through the
Project
pump
engineers there
is
to
high.
give them
And
that.
it pushes,
How does that work?
analyzes the oil.
Actually do the work that blows it out.
Those things never had coordinated or anything like that on. But as you draw down into a vacuum, that flow slows
Not
down,
technically,
and the oil tends
I guess,
to stay
running.
I know, that's what I'm listening to.
Yeah, the pumps look new,
Great.
but I don't know
Yeah,
what
just-
the
I mean,
ones before.
for a while there, my project engineer, I was going to him thinking he was project manager, the other guy did some sitting at the table. But no, project manager is throwing this stuff out, I'm like, how's it, you know, this project engineer, I do his name now, no, he's not a manager, he's an engineer. So it's kind of strange how we roll there.
So would you say there's a problem with the structure, the organizational structure?
Probably, yeah.
That's an overarching theme of this program, I think.
It's in, well, that's what we do.
Yeah.
Name all names.
Once I understand the system, then I can figure out a way to work within it
Or
or
manager.
So you assign them an engineer.
Well, as long as the payroll system continues to work, nothing we feel they're gonna complain about it.
My understanding
talks
was
about how
when they
Right.
were
through the cool.
Yeah, right.
I remember the first
project manager
management meeting we
wanted
had
to do things.
What you should do is you should make the payroll
He's
system
gone now.
operate the same way as your system at the plant, see how long it takes to get changes.
That's what I say about Congress.
People would like not do a paycheck this week, you always get a random paycheck, next week you get half of what you normally get, and then you get double the amount one week. and
17 approved.
It actually went up to the project manager's manager, he was telling him how he was gonna do it.
Hilarious.
That's what I say about Congress. They'll come over the budget every year if you stop their funding.
Our manager, like, no, you're not gonna do that,
Yeah.
here's why.
You're not
You know,
allowed
you got
to
good engineering.
be paid
you know,
until your
baseline.
budget's approved.
He just recently got replaced.
So yeah, a lot of times our project managers we have are not,
Just one step above him.
you know, they might be good at dealing with the schedule and defining things and coordinating on paper, but not in reality.
And what I'm hearing there
But anyways,
is
it's interesting.
a need for that person slash group of people to understand what I know and what I don't know. You know, we all lean on others for expertise or support or whatever. As a project manager, I gotta do that. That would hopefully prevent me from standing up there and saying, well, just
do this.
But, you know, we're gonna talk about the perfect system and the perfect set of processes, and we're all gonna go, yeah, but, right? And that's okay. We need to start with some foundational structure that we can talk from, and then we all need to recognize that's not the world we live
in. She said she supported that. I told students, so I said.
Oh, let's go ahead.
You mind if I just said so everybody can hear it? There was a question about the lunch. I told her that it seemed like the consensus that it would be a good solution to just drop Popeyes out of the rotation, and she said okay. And then I said second was people seem to like brown bag the most, and probably wouldn't mind if we did that every time. So we'll see what she does. She did not commit to any particular course of action.
Do they have a different menu option besides this? Not that it's bad, but.
Well, it's, after talking to today, it sounds like they don't, but they've got, I can't, is that her name? Calling a couple of other vendors to see if they have healthy choices, if they're in our price range, and we'll go from there, so.
Thank you.
I'm just okay with dropping Popeyes.
Because variation is good too.
I like variation personally.
I live for variation.
Is that from your statistics class?
No, that's
fan of variation.
That's from lean.
From lean, okay.
Variation is bad.
Okay.
Or it costs money anyway.
Yeah. In lean, variation is bad and costly, and in statistics, it's the world you live in.
Yeah.
Variation is the world we live in. Okay, I just want to close this, and I know you guys are eating, but it's okay. We'll go ahead and talk through this. And I don't mind if you talk with food in your mouth. Just don't look at your compatriot on your left or right. They may not like it. The point that we want to make here is that there are, yes, these were projects. Yes, there are projects ongoing right now. I mean, we know that in the Leaning Tower, there were projects for several years and probably still ongoing to keep it from leaning anymore. Now, do they want to try to straighten it back up? No. Why not?
It's not leaning.
Because tourism. Yeah, because tourism. But